Okay, so here we go. I apologize if this video is funky a little bit because this is my first time experimenting with this, so hopefully it goes well. Also, it's really hard to talk to a webcam and not directly to anyone face to face, so this is strange. But after reading chapter 1 and 2 of Hicks, reflecting on my own experiences, mostly being taught writing because I haven't yet had an opportunity to teach writing, although I look forward to that. There are a few things that come to mind in terms of core principles. So first of all, I value student choice and inquiry. I really value that. That being said, I want to create the kind of classroom environment that allows students to be able to follow their own lines of inquiry while also being facilitated and guided by the teacher. I've always seen the teacher as more of a facilitator than anything else, and I want to be that kind of teacher, especially in the writing workshop classroom. I want to confer with students on their writing on a regular basis and give them timely and constructive feedback. That's really important to me because in my own development as a writer, timely and constructive feedback has been the greatest tool for me and the thing that really helped me the most. I also want to say that time being given in the classroom to write is really important, but even more than that, I think valuing and encouraging daily writing is really important. For me, finishing my master's thesis last semester, it was really hard to get into that practice of daily writing, but eventually it got easier because I got more and more used to it, and it really, really helped me, that process. So I would want to try to do that in my own classroom, especially if it's secondary students. Considering new literacies, I thought that Noble and Lankshire bring up very good points, especially when they say that in order for a literacy to be new, it must not only include the technology itself, but also the mindset toward a more open and collaborative process of literacy learning. That was on page 16 of Hicks. I think that as teachers, it's our responsibility to really know about current technologies and modes of thinking to the best of our ability. But more importantly, to find ways to integrate it and to leverage it for learning in meaningful ways. I think that I have a little bit of an edge and advantage being a younger teacher who has grown up as technology has. So I'm a native speaker when it comes to the language of social media and technology and internet, and I understand and value more open and collaborative approaches to literacy learning because it's how I've learned and it's how I function as a member of the ever-increasing global and connected community that I'm a part of. I do think that there must be a balance between traditional modes of expression and utilizing new literacies, but as teachers with very little time, I think that using new literacies can help us get the best of both worlds. I just think that collaboration between teachers and asking for help where we're not sure about things, as with anything, will really help us to grow in this area. Okay, so, oops. So given my own experience using technology, what do I already know about good writing? Well, I think that good writing can mean different things in different contexts. So, for example, a good blog is going to look very different from a good master's thesis. The reason for this is because the purpose and the audience are vastly different, as well as the language and format used. So I think that good writing always leverages both language and purpose in order to effectively enter the conversation of any context that they're in. So it takes into consideration what has already been said, what's currently being said, and what hasn't been said yet in that particular form. So whether you're writing poetry or a master's thesis, this is increasingly true. I would argue that especially in the increasingly globalized and connected world we live in, writing is becoming less and less an isolated act. And good writing uses and leverages the language of the audience as well as the context that they're in to achieve a purpose and to convey meaning. So, good writing gets the point across, taking into consideration the language and the context that they're using. So as far as my own comfort level with technology, as well as the Writer's Workshop, I would say that my struggle is going to come in more with understanding Writer's Workshop itself, because I haven't, again, had experience teaching that, and I'm still getting to know the ins and outs of Writer's Workshop. When it comes to technologies, I'm very comfortable. All of the technologies that we read about in these 2 chapters I had already known about. However, I was really intrigued and excited to read about how we can use them in the classroom and integrating them with Writer's Workshop. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for me to be continuing to learn more about Writer's Workshop, but technology I'm not that scared about, so that's a good thing. Okay, moving on to chapter 2. So, fostering choice and inquiry through RSS, social bookmarking, and blogging. So, I would say for that first prompt, one of the most prominent struggles when it comes to student choice, I think, is finding ways to balance that with the different curricular standards that we're held to. I think with state and national standards and testing to accommodate, which are all very real things, students really need to know how to write in a variety of ways, especially on-demand writing, which requires close reading and critical thinking. I think the good thing about giving students choice is that it gives each student their own unique entry point through which they can engage with these standards. And I think that the CCLS shifts towards literacy across disciplines has actually given an opportunity for using big ideas and concepts, but also asking students to explore them in different ways. So social bookmarking, RSS, and blogging give us the means and the tools to explore different kinds of writing and researching through new literacies and in new ways. And I think that teachers should always be asking themselves what the purpose is and how they're going to best leverage the technology and new literacies to use them in the best way. So social bookmarking, I think the good thing about social bookmarking is that, as it said in our Hicks book, that it adds that human element to sharing and finding resources. I think that it's a fantastic resource for classes who are following similar lines of inquiry, especially as they can share anything and everything they encounter with each other. It seems that more pertinent information and sources would be found as long as students are taught how to find these sources in the first place. So the downside is that you only see these resources that are either your own or shared, so you might miss things that you would find in a general search engine or a database. However, it's a good tool for building stores of knowledge and information in a social and collaborative way, and giving opportunities to go deeper with the group as information is synthesized. You're able to synthesize information along a line of inquiry as a group, so you're finding more connections than you would if you were just synthesizing information on your own. So that's pretty cool. And lastly, I think blogs. Let's see. Students would need to be taught how to frame and tag their posts. So if it needs to be learned, it needs to be taught, right? So they would need to learn these things through either mini lessons or through experience. And I'm sure as a teacher, probably in the book, he's going to go into it more in detail how to do that. But modeling is always a really good thing. It may be a really good learning opportunity if they start getting all kinds of responses as opposed to the responses that they particularly want. And then the teacher can kind of use that as an opportunity to say, hey, this is the kind of response you got when you posted this kind of thing and didn't really tag it this way, and how could you change your tags to get this kind of response? So just using that to facilitate the learning, I think, is a good thing. Mini lessons would be helpful, like I said. It would also be very important to teach them about meaningful feedback, what it looks like, what it doesn't look like, being specific. Part of this could be taught, again, through modeling in the workshop. Students will have to really learn to read their peers' posts closely and thoughtfully, which actually hits 2 birds with 1 stone, because part of the literacy standards that we're asked to teach them nowadays have to do with close reading and on-demand writing prompts, and they're having to really think critically about everything they're reading. And if they're having to do that about their peers' posts, I think this is a really good opportunity for them to practice that and give the kind of feedback that they also want to be getting. So all in all, I'm really excited about learning more about the digital writing workshop and using new literacies in that way. So awesome. Talk to you guys later.